with a community, identify with a culture, identify with a nation, and with their own sense of belonging, their own sense of identity. And in countries like America and Canada, where there's melting pot, they are selective in the heritage they want. Well, some of them are selective, some of them are just Scottish or Irish or whatever through and through. But a lot of them will be a bit of a mixture, but they're selecting that they are proud of their Scottish roots. And then they are showing that by having Scottish flags and wearing kilts, and that's because they perhaps don't have the context to go along with their identity. So I am Scottish. I don't need to wear tartan to prove that I'm Scottish. I guess I feel the same thing in Cape Breton. I feel it's nice in a way. I liked it when I went into the church, and I think it was in Mabu, and I went in, and that was one of the few places I've seen the McClellan tartan, which is my family tartan, because so many McClellans left and went to Cape Breton, and they had in the church they had 6 pillars, and one of them had McClellan, and I liked that because that was showing their identity. But I also feel that they're using the tartan to substitute the language. So where they've lost the language, I feel when you walk into the Gaelic college, you just seem to be swarmed with tartan. And I feel like that is a substitute for the fact that although they still have the culture, there's not as many Gaelic speakers. And I think it's a bit the same in Scotland. I do think it is the same in Scotland. To a certain extent, but more so they're wearing their identity in it. And if they do kind of concerts like Broad Cove Scottish concert in Cape Breton, even the step dancers will all be wearing bits of tartan, because they're proving that this is their kind of showing that we do all these traditions, and these traditions are Scottish, and we're wearing the tartan to show. Whereas I disagree with all that, and I think I am Scottish because I am Scottish, because I'm Scottish by birth and by culture and by heritage and by ancestry and by upbringing and by culture and everything, so because it's not about, it's just about who you are, isn't it? And so I don't wear tartan when I dance, because for me, when I step dance, this is my dance. This dance is Scottish because I'm Scottish. Well, not because I'm Scottish, but I'm Scottish and I'm doing the dance, and that's enough for me. And I don't think I dress as Sophie dresses. Yes. And I don't dress as anyone would expect me to dress culturally. When I went to Norway, they expected me to have something, so I put a wee sash on the tartan, which is not what I would normally do, but in the context, they wanted something, so I thought, okay, well, and it was my family tartan, so I was okay with that, but they needed something to identify you, and wherever you go in the world, you do notice that quite often traditional dance and traditional costume seem to go hand in hand. And I believe that for a tradition to truly be a living tradition, to truly to be part of a, I just feel like there's nothing more natural than people just wearing what they wear. And I think like in the Basque country, they like to get dressed up in their Basque costumes at certain times of year, and I know in lots of other cultures they do that kind of thing, but I don't feel like you should have to wear a costume in order to justify your tradition as a particular part of a particular identity or particular culture, from a particular country. So so I guess I have a complex relationship with tartan. I love it when it's subtle, when is there tartan, when it's not overused, when it's not substituting language and culture. I can't imagine ever marrying someone and them not wearing a kilt. That would be important to me, but then rather than a kilt, rather than a suit. Well, if I marry someone not Scottish, then maybe it might be different. But at the same time, I wouldn't want them to be wearing I've got a big image in my head of these kilt people buy that they rent for the day, which people often get for their wedding, and all these black buckley things and shiny white buckles and black jacket, and I just feel that's not natural. But just put a kilt on, a nice shirt, maybe a waistcoat. Yeah. But the waistcoat can be your own personality, you know. It can be silky, it can be tweed, it can be whatever colour you want. But you know, the kilt is I don't know. It's, to me, wearing a kilt is just what you put on a special occasion. Not because it's a costume, but just because it's smart and colourful and celebratory. And my father and brother always would put it on at Christmas Day, wear it to church in the snow.
Oh wow!
But I have a complex relationship because I feel like it's branded too much in marketing and in tourism, and it's kind of been hijacked. Yeah. And if I'm honest, the idea of a tartan boat sounds hideous. but not in a, you know. I think I'm sure it'll be great. But you know that. But this idea of tartan over anything, I think. Yeah. But so I think I'm actually extremely interested because.
But don't you think that it's gonna actually like push some buttons in that, you know, aspect of like really like how has been, you know, losing in a way, you know, like diluted because of this like exploitation of tartan.
Yeah, no, exactly, and that's what you're provoking, and I think in that way, I think that's good, you know. Yeah. And also, I think it's good because you're going to try and take on board all these complex ideas and express it, and you're going to get a lot of people who say how much tartan means to them, and because we've been fed since we were young children that tartan is who we are. Yeah. But it's not who we are. We are individuals, and I think it's important to be individuals, and part of having these different clans is about your individual clan, you know, if you know what I mean. But not to be all branded as one. But interestingly as well, I mean, this idea of specific tartans is just kind of, it's only been around in the last 200 years or something, you know. Before that, people just dyed the colours that were natural around them. They weren't specific tartans, like it just happened that they had these people all had, you know, the similar colours used in their plaids, and then other ones had different colours, and you know, and or made by the same person, or like, you know, that kind of thing, and then it evolved into what it is now. But it's all really a fabrication. But yeah, what does it mean? That's the question. And where's it going to go? And I think it means a lot more to people abroad than it does to people in Scotland. But I think there's also that expectation when you go abroad that you have to wear tartan. I'm doing a tour though in Germany with a band called Dive and a band called Talisk, and it's called the Highland Blast Tour. And really interestingly, in their marketing, they don't use any tartan. And they've gone away from tartan. The Scottish Tourist Board used to use a lot of tartan. In the last 10 years, they've gone away from a lot of tartan. So I think there's been I've noticed a step back in the last 10 years from using it, because I think people are trying to go a bit more classy with their marketing and quality. And I think an example would be, for instance, the Isle of Skye Candle Company. Their claim to being Scottish is the fact that they are made on the Isle of Skye, and that's their branding. Very recently, only in the last year, they've introduced one range of candles with a bit of tartan, and I'm sure that's because people want tartan to bring home. That's why there's tartan on shortbread packaging and things like that. And that's the kind of the trouble we have. But people want that, but I think there's definitely a move in terms of arts and crafts about people making things. I think it all comes down to this idea of authenticity and what is authentic and what's authentically Scottish. And I think we know that that's not authentically Scottish, and I think there's a move towards understanding that what is authentically Scottish is something just what is real. So me being true to myself, being real, wearing what I want to wear, and doing dancing as me and not conforming to any idea of Scottishness that is authentic to myself, and being true to yourself. And then in the same way, someone, whether they're a painter or a potter or they're making soaps, or they're making candles, or they're making handbags, or they're making whatever they're making, how to tweed something, that I think that idea that they are making something handmade, handcrafted in Scotland is enough. And I think there's a big market there for those kind of gifts and those kind of souvenirs, because I think a lot of the things I was talking about were kind of more souvenirs people are bringing home. So there definitely seems to be that kind of made in Scotland type branding, which is moving away from using tartan. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Sophie. This
You're
was
welcome.
incredible, and thank you.
Apart from the bit when